Japanese Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide is on his way to Washington for his first face-to-face talks with U.S. President Joe Biden. Suga will be the first foreign leader Biden meets in person. Shortly before leaving Tokyo, Suga said he wants to establish personal trust with the president during Friday's summit.
I want to further strengthen the Japan-U.S. alliance, which is cemented by universal values such as freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Together with the President, I also want to signal to the world the leadership of our two countries.
The leaders are expected to discuss China's growing maritime presence. Bilateral cooperation to address climate change and global distribution of coronavirus vaccines are also expected to be on the agenda. The Prime Minister plans to ask Biden for cooperation in Japan's efforts to reunite its citizens abducted by North Korean agents decades ago with their families. The two could release a joint statement from the talks, which might mention Taiwan and alleged human rights issues in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. With the coronavirus continuing to spread across Japan, the Prime Minister seems ready to give 4 more prefectures the power to strengthen virus measures without declaring a state of emergency. That would be on top of Tokyo, Osaka, and 4 other COVID-19 hotspots. Officials in the capital reported over 700 new infections on Thursday, continuing an upward trend. The metropolis is taking a targeted approach to address the problem before a major national holiday begins in 2 weeks. Ahead of his trip, the Prime Minister discussed his idea with relevant ministers. If the decision becomes final, it'll affect 3 of Tokyo's neighbors, Saitama, Chiba, and Kanagawa, as well as Aichi Prefecture. The designation would come into effect next week and allow governors to do things like order restaurants and bars to close early and impose punishments.
Cases of new variants are increasing. From now, daily cases will likely surge.
Osaka is finishing week 2 of this approach, but case counts are still breaking records. The Western Prefecture logged more than 1,200 cases on Thursday, a quarter of the national figure.
The medical system is in crisis, especially when it comes to seriously ill patients. The most urgent issue is how to get people to minimize their outings and human contact.
Yoshimura said if the situation doesn't improve, he'll call on the government to take the next step, declaring a state of emergency. The governor of Fukushima wants the central government to ensure its plan to release treated water from the crippled nuclear power plant into the ocean doesn't damage the prefecture's reputation. The water will be diluted before its release, so the concentration of contaminants meets global safety levels. The governor discussed the plan with Japan's industry minister on Thursday, 2 days after the government announced its decision.
In the 10 years since the nuclear accident, people in Fukushima have done all they can to rebuild the affected area and fight misunderstandings that threaten reputations. There's concern the plan could make those efforts come to nothing. We want the central government to appreciate the situation we face in Fukushima.
We decided on how to dispose of the treated water in order to press ahead with the rebuilding of Fukushima. It was an extremely important decision for the government. We are fully aware that the decision comes with a heavy responsibility.
Uchibori urged the government to provide accurate information and seek the understanding of people such as farmers and fishermen who might be affected by the water's release. He also demanded that the government pursue technology to remove radioactive tritium from the water. Water is used to cool molten nuclear fuel at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. It mixes with rain and groundwater that flows into damaged reactor buildings, amounting to more than 100 tons each day. This water undergoes a treatment process that removes most radioactive material but it still contains tritium. The treated water is then stored. The plant has about 1,000 tanks, which are now 90% full. The remainder is expected to fill up sometime next year. The treated water will be diluted, so the tritium concentration is well below national standards and about 1/7 of the level the World Health Organization suggests is safe for drinking water. The International Atomic Energy Agency supports the plan, noting that the method is in line with international practice. But China and South Korea have jointly expressed their dissatisfaction and concern over the possible impact on the marine environment. They say they'll work together to address the matter. North Korea is also demanding that Japan withdraw the plan. People familiar with China-North Korea trade and diplomats in Beijing are reporting speculation that Pyongyang is preparing to ease some of its trade restrictions with China after more than 1 year of border closure as a measure against the coronavirus. An NHK TV crew spotted a freight train on Thursday in the northeastern Chinese city of Dandong near the North Korean border. The train had more than a dozen cars and bore the Korean name of a station in Pyongyang. In the past, trains with the same station name often went back and forth between the two countries. The NHK crew also saw a newly built structure near a Chinese immigration office. The building has a Chinese name suggesting it could be an epidemiological survey area. In China, such facilities check people's temperatures and other health conditions. One expert noted that North Korea passed a new law last month that requires imported goods to be disinfected. He said it was an apparent sign Pyongyang plans to reopen trade. Turning now to Myanmar, where the anti-coup protests continue. Local media say nearly 100 Myanmar military troops were killed in a battle with an armed ethnic minority group in the northern state of Kachin. The Irrawaddy, the country's leading independent media outlet, reported this on Wednesday. It says the military carried out airstrikes for a 4th consecutive day. It deployed about 100 ground troops to recapture a strategic base near the Chinese border from the Kachin Independence Army, or the KIA. But the ground troops suffered heavy casualties in KIA counterattacks on Tuesday. The military base was attacked and occupied by the armed group in late March. The group is taking the stance of joining the citizens protesting the coup. Clashes with the military have continued since early last month. Observers say the military may launch more powerful attacks in the wake of its crushing defeat in the fighting. Taiwan's president has welcomed the first U.S. mission since Joe Biden took office, saying the visit shows that ties between Taiwan and the United States continue to deepen. The unofficial delegation consists of former Democratic Senator Chris Dodd, along with former Deputy Secretaries of State Richard Armitage and James Steinberg. They traveled to Taiwan at Biden's request. The meeting comes at a time when the Chinese military is ramping up its activities in areas around Taiwan.
I'd like to thank the Biden administration for reiterating on numerous occasions the importance of peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. We're willing to work with the U.S. and like-minded countries to jointly safeguard the peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific and deter adventurous maneuvers and provocations.
This administration will help you expand your international space and support your investments in self-defense. The Biden administration will also seek further deepening of our already robust economic ties.
The Biden administration has recently enhanced its ties with Taiwan. It's issued new guidelines that enable U.S. officials to interact more freely with their counterparts from Taiwan. While Beijing has opposed official exchanges in any form between the U.S. and Taiwan, the Chinese government says it's conducting live fire drills in waters south of the Taiwan Strait from Thursday. China's Maritime Safety Administration on Wednesday issued a warning that bans ships from navigating in the area from Thursday through Tuesday. Details on the drills have not been revealed. Earlier this week, Taiwan said 25 Chinese military aircraft, including fighters and bombers, entered its air defense identification zone on Monday. U.S. President Biden has named an Asian American woman as deputy assistant to the president against a backdrop of rising violence targeting Asian Americans. The White House said in a statement issued on Wednesday that Erika Moritsugu will also be senior liaison to the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. Moritsugu is Japanese American and was born in California. The White House said Moritsugu will bring her experience and expertise to the administration, where she'll be a vital voice to advance the president and the administration's priorities. A U.S. nonprofit group says its center received nearly 3,800 reports of anti-Asian discrimination and violence during roughly 1 year of the pandemic. It's time now for a check on world weather. People in parts of the southeastern U.S. have been contending with days of torrential rains and thunderstorms. Our meteorologist Sayaka Mori has the forecast.
Hello there. Weather has been pretty wet across the deep south so far this spring. From Wednesday to Monday, in just 6 days, New Orleans saw over 220 millimeters of rain. That's twice as much as the monthly rainfall for April. And from Tuesday to Wednesday, 2 more rounds of severe weather buffeted parts of Louisiana. Winds were very strong too, and that caused severe damage. Take a look at this video. A slow-moving storm passing through Louisiana caused havoc on Tuesday. Gusts of 120 kilometers per hour have been reported. The storm knocked out power in Grand Isle, leaving residents without water and power. As a commercial boat capsized, one person has been killed and several people have been rescued. Despite high waves, the search for missing people continued on Wednesday. There's a possibility of more severe thunderstorms across the deep south. As you can see, more rain could lead to flooding, and there's a chance for damaging winds as well as large hail for the next couple of days. Drier conditions across the west. Seattle will remain in the 20s at least into next Monday, so enjoy the nice weather. Los Angeles will see sunny weather too, but it's going to be chillier compared to Seattle. Meanwhile, Japan saw nice weather on Thursday, but it'll turn wet across the west, and it looks like rain will spread towards the east into Sunday, so it's going to be a...
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken makes an unannounced visit to Afghanistan in an effort to build support for a U.S. troop withdrawal from the country by September 11th. Negotiations to bring the United States back into an international nuclear deal with Iran restart in Vienna, Austria. In Myanmar, protesters hold a candlelight march in Dawei to protest the military's government takeover. And French President Emmanuel Macron visits rebuilding work at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris 2 years after fire partly destroyed the famous religious building.
Derek Chauvin has waived his right to testify in his defence on the final and crucial day of evidence at the trial for the murder of George Floyd. Closing arguments will be heard on Monday. The United States has announced wide-ranging new sanctions on Moscow and will expel 10 diplomats over alleged Russian cyber attacks and interference in U.S. elections. India has reported a record 200,000 new COVID-19 cases in one day as the second wave continues to surge. The capital Delhi will go into weekend lockdowns to try and contain the spread. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has reaffirmed his country's ongoing commitment to Afghanistan during a surprise visit to Kabul, a day after Washington confirmed complete troop withdrawal from the country by September 11th.